Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. This is a brief reminder, bi'idhnillah, for myself and for others. And this pertaining to the topic, inshallah ta'ala, compatibility in Aqeedah, which is known as creed, or incompatibility also in Minhaaj, which is known as Minhaaj methodology, which is loosely translated. So when it comes to nikah, marriage, we hear a lot, especially in the city that I'm from, which is Philadelphia. We hear a lot of talk about compatibility in both of these issues as far as creed and as far as methodology. We want to mention some verses and be in mind and be aware and be mindful that these verses do have a context. They have a sabab, asbab, meaning a reason why they were sent down. But these verses all touch and highlight to the importance of compatibility. But I'm going to get to my whole point of this, inshallah. The first verse I want to bring to you is that the verse of Allah Azza wa Jal, when He says in the Quran, in Surah Baqarah, Allah says, وَلَا تَنْ أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, He says, وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ وَلَا أَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ وَلَا تُنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ بِإِذْنِهِ وَيُبَيِّنُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. And this verse, which is the verse of the 221 verse of Surah Baqarah, Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, and do not marry off to the mushrikat, meaning don't marry the women who are mushrik or polytheists, who join partners with Allah until they believe. And He said the believing servant, slave, female slave, she is better for you than a woman who is a mushrikah, who is a polytheist, who join partners with Allah. Even if that mushrikah is one who pleases you, even if you find yourself attracted to her, even if you find yourself pleased with her, in terms of how she looked and things like that, etc. Then He says to the men, do not marry do not marry off them to the polytheist men, meaning the men who are mushrikun, until they believe. So in other words, the men shouldn't marry the women who are polytheists, and nor should the women marry the men who are polytheists who commit shirk. And that the believing servant, male servant, is better for you than a mushrik, a disbelieving man who commits shirk, even if he pleases you and you are attracted to him. They call, Allah says, these individuals, they call you to the fire, and Allah Jalla wa Ala is the one who calls you to paradise and to forgiveness, according to by His leave. And He have clarified His verses to the people in order that they may reflect or may reflect or remember. In Surah Ma'idah, there's a verse where Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, and I want you to pay attention to the context of each of these verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after mentioning that the food of the people of the book is permissible for you, then also He mentioned that the food, your food is permissible for them. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ إِذَا آتَيْتُمُوهُنَّ أُجُورَهُنَّ مُحْصِنِينَ غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ وَلَا مُتَّخِذِي أَخْدَانٍ. In this verse, Al-Ayah, Allah Jalla wa Ala says in Surah Ma'idah, and the verse that we're talking about is in verse 5. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says that the women who are chaste from the believing woman, and the women who are chaste from the women of the people of the book from before you, when they are given their mahar, and meaning muhsinina, they are chaste, and you do not seek from them any type of taking them as boyfriend or girlfriends, right? These women are made permissible for you to marry, okay, in terms of marriage and nikah. So both of these verses highlight an important point, and we're going to bring some more verses that shows the compatibility in creed. Both of these verses highlight some important points, and that is it should be an incompatibility regarding creed and manhaj. But in our city, how do we determine that? In our city, what do we mean when we say people should be? See that one, the impermissibility of marrying those who are upon disbelief from the mushrikun, that's flat out idol worshippers, or they worship something and calling something other than Allah, as opposed to the second verse, which highlights the people of the book, which we know, and us, and they also commit shirk. But there are conditions. For the people of the book, they must believe that there is one creator, so forth and so on, and not that there is, the Son, the Father. They must not believe in that. They must have a belief that there is one creator. They must believe in monotheism, not committing shirk. And then they must be chaste. And then there's also other conditions that the ulama explains and the books of fiqh dealing with those. So don't think that one verse is contradicting the other. Okay? Now, a disbelieving person, a person who commits shirk, this is not whom you should look for to marry. So this proves and shows that compatibility in creed must be established. Okay? Along with also compatibility in what we call minhaj, and we'll get to that in a minute. Tayyib. Allah says in Surah An-Nur, and this surah is actually unique. In this surah, Allah Jalla wa Ala lays down a lot of instructions, a lot of injunctions for the believers. Okay? And we know it deals with the story of Ifk. But Allah Jalla wa Ala, He mentioned something showing you about this compatibility. Allah says, الزاني لا ينكح إلا زانية أو مشركة والزانية لا ينكحها والزانية لا ينكحها إلا زان أو مشرك وحرم ذلك على المؤمنين. Allah said that the zani, the male fornicator or the adulterer, does not marry no one except a female fornicator or adulterer, or a person who is upon shirk, a mushrik or polytheist. And the female adulteress or fornicatress, she does not marry except a male fornicator or adulterer, or a polytheist, a mushrik. And all of this has been made impermissible for the believers. What is this verse is showing us? It's showing us what? That compatibility is very essential, and that people of likes is only going to pair up with the same people. So if a person is upon something that is incorrect, such as fornication, adultery, then they're only going to seek out those people who are unwholesome and impure in the first place. Henceforth, the next verse I'm getting ready to recite actually clarifies this even more when Allah says in the same surah, Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, Al-khabithatu lil-khabithina wal-khabithuna lil-khabithat wat-tayyibatu lit-tayyibina wat-tayyibuna lit-tayyibat. Well, Allah says that the filthy, impure, and bad bad women are for the impure and filthy bad men. Vice versa, the bad and impure filthy men are for the bad and impure filthy women. And the good and wholesome woman is for the good and wholesome man, and vice versa, the good and wholesome man is for the good and wholesome woman. And Ibn Kathir said also bad statements are for bad statements, and good statements are for good statements. So all of these verses that we just quoted all shows that compatibility in creed should be established. Why is it that? Because people that are alike is actually going to attract their opposite. Okay? Meaning they're similar. So if they are foul, you're going to be attracted to something that is foul. If they are good, then you're going to be attracted to that which is good. And then Allah Jalla wa Ala highlights to you what is considered to be good. A believer is considered to be wholesome, good. Do you understand that? A mushrik is considered to be impure. Okay, from both levels. They're impure, what we call ma'nawiyan and wahisiyan. They are pure as far as physically, and they are pure as far as spiritually. Okay, they are impure they are impure physically and they're impure spiritually. Okay, they najis, and this is important to understand. So when it comes to marrying someone, yes, you should be compatible in both creed as well as in both minhaj. Okay, but in this city, and it might be like this a lot, how do you determine that? How do you know if someone compatible? Okay, is they compatible? Is the person compatible? If one, they go to the same masjid you go to. Two, they take from the same students you take from. Three, they take from the same scholars you take from. Four, if they happen to view things the way that you view things, do that make a person compatible? Outwardly, you would say, yes, that makes a person compatible. We actually think alike. We actually agree, right? Are y'all compatible? These are key factors or determinations that, or key signs to let you know that someone is compatible with you in terms of where you take from and where you go at. Okay? This can be a yes or no answer. This can be a yes and no answer. And you might say, what do I mean by this a yes or no answer? Because sometimes, a lot of us, especially, we don't understand how Nas is broken down. So I'm going to explain this to you so that you can have a clear picture of how the ulama divide mankind. Okay? We are divided into three groups. Okay? You have what we call the ulama in terms of knowledge. You have those what we call ulama, those who are people who are learned. They understand the text of the Book of Allah Azza wa Jalla and the Sunnah. Okay? They're able to use the tools and so forth, etc. Then you have those who are the second category, those who are the tulab. Those people, whether they're male or female, who Allah Jalla wa Ala armed them with the necessary tools, and they're able to go in and follow up the statements of the ulama and so forth. And then you have those who are the amatun nas, okay? They are the commoners. And the commoners by default, as Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he mentioned, the rule of thumb when it comes to the commoners, when it comes to their deen, majority of them, akthar or amatun nas, are juhal. They are ignorant when it comes to the affairs of their deen. Okay? And this is important to understand in relation to what I'm talking about. Because sometimes what we think, if you base that a person goes to a certain masjid, the same masjid that you go to is a telltale sign that you are compatible, then you are sadly mistaken. It is possible that two people can go to the same masjid but have two understandings. That's very possible. Okay? So we base that off of that. So when you look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and he tells you, the guardians, that is, what to look for when a person proposed for a woman's hands in marriage. I want you to pay attention to what the Prophet ﷺ said. I don't want forget what anyone else tell you. I want you to listen what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said. When he said someone proposes for a woman's hand in marriage, he said look at two things, okay? Not the outer appearance, not this, not that. He said look for two things that will let you know that that person is suitable to marry that guard or that ward that's under your command, such as your daughter, and so forth, etc., such as your sister, such as your niece, etc., etc. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ said what? Look at his one who deen pleases you, wa khuluquhu, and his character. All right? These are two essential components that must be present that you want to look at when you base it and weighing in for marriage. Vice versa. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in regards to the woman, he says when you marry the woman, he mentioned that they're married for 4 reasons, meaning that these are some of the reasons people marry, but then he mentioned at the end and he gave you his opinion on the end. He says marry the one who is mudayyina, right? Who incorporate that. Why is I mentioning this? Because it's important to understand these components. These components are mainly inwardly before outwardly. Okay? If you marry someone based off the outer aspects alone, that is not sufficient enough. You have to marry someone based off the inner aspects as well. And that is character. Okay? How a person behave, how a person deal, what do a person do? All of this is important because character is a key sign of understanding. And some people don't understand that. A person acting and what they do and how they behave and how they move about is a key understanding, is a key sign to you that they understand their deen. This is where the practical part comes from. Okay? If a person is faced with 2 scenarios, right? And he had the option of doing option A, but it's more difficult to do option A, and he had an option to do option B, and it's less difficult to do option B. But he chose to do option B because he knows it's less and it's less difficult and so forth. Here he is utilizing the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that Aisha radhiyallahu anha said what? The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was never faced with 2 things in the deen, except that he will pick what? The one that is the more easier to do. So if he's working with these principles and he utilized that principle, he's showing you what? He's in his character by him doing that, is showing you that he has understanding. So the big component you want to look for in compatibility and creed is making sure the person understands the creed. Do we get that? A person understand the creed. You cannot determine that a brother or a sister understand the creed because they go to masjid so-and-so. Many people go to masjid so-and-so and still don't know. For example, I remember one time when the Hafid was giving the khutbah in Germantown, Sunnah Nabawiyah, and then when he got finished the khutbah, he was making a statement of in regards to He was giving a khutbah about, costumes and dressing and appearing and not looking the look, but not having the actual character to, to support it or to back it up. When he gets outside of the masjid now, there was an individual who was having a conversation with from the Amat Nas, the commoners, right? And the man said a statement. He said that indeed Allah is in my heart. Like this, the statement he made. He was saying something to him, and he said that Allah was in my heart, right? He made this statement. Now, this statement is an incorrect statement on multiple levels, right? But you would appear and you would think that you assume because the man goes to Sunnah Nabawiyyah, right? He goes to a masjid that we, alhamdulillah, that's, upon the dawah and so forth and so on, right? And you would think that this brother here, understand. And this is a key understanding that just because a person goes somewhere, it doesn't mean they understand fully. And it doesn't mean that they understand the creed. So don't make that a telltale sign is what I'm trying to say to you. That's not an indicator to tell me whether or not you are compatible in creed. What's the indicator for me is your understanding of that creed. Do you understand? Do the person understand creed? And when we say understand creed, then we have to understand where creed derived from. We have to understand, etc., etc. Where do we get it from? Basically, a person telling you, I study with so-and-so, student so-and-so, and I know student so-and-so to be solid, he checks out, they're verified. I mean, they're verified for him. They actually, he got the tazkiyah, got the ijazah, etc., etc., etc. This is who I study with. This is the reference points that I use, okay? And you're using the student as a reference point. So you said, this is who I'm studying with. And then you get with an individual who say, well, I don't take from the person that you study with. Right? Is that a sign that you're not compatible? Is that a sign that you're not compatible because he doesn't take from the same person you take from? Now, it could be multiple reasons why he doesn't take from the same people. He might don't warn from the person you take from. He might be above actually with the person you take from. He might be above and able to go directly to the source and not go to the person you with. He might actually find someone else who he's more comfortable with or trusting with, like, and vice versa, but actually are saying the same thing that the other person is saying and actually teaching. And he actually sticks to the principle. So he doesn't have to per se take directly from the source you're taking from. As long as it's the sources that he's taking from, meaning not the person, but the sources are correct. Meaning he's still taking from Quran, he's still taking from Sunnah, he's still taking Fahm Salaf, he's still taking from the understanding of the companions, he's still following the necessary steps, he just don't take from Fulan and Alan. You understand? So it's not a key component that a person takes from the same place you take to show me or to show you that y'all are compatible. Y'all be compatible in creed, in your understanding of that creed, in your practice of that creed. Your character is going to determine that. Henceforth, the statement of Sheikh Rabi'. And that statement was, you can tell a person that he's Salafi, even down to him teaching arithmetics, right? Math. A person teaching math, you can tell that he's Salafi, right? This was the statement of Sheikh Rabi'. Now, what is this statement telling us? I'm getting ready to stop, inshallah. What is this statement telling you and I? This statement basically is indicating to us that you're pretty much going to know what a person is upon by the way they behave, their character, more so than what they say, what they ascribe to, what they claim, ascriptions and affiliations. That's not the key sign. Key sign is what they do. Now you can have a scenario where so-and-so goes to this big masjid that everyone says is upon the dawah. Alhamdulillah. Right? And then you can have so-and-so that goes to these classes and go to this masjid, be the ignorant of the people. His character is poorly, he has poor mannerism. He doesn't behave in a certain way. He don't understand the text completely. He doesn't take his time out to study his deen, the most intricate part as far as his basics. And then you can have Alan going to a masjid that is not known or widespread, but is not upon what we call bid'ah, right? Or innovation, ainiyah, because that's a whole nother different classification. So you have this individual who's not well known, but his character, according to the hadith, you're looking at his character, is impeccable. His character is a testification of his understanding of the deen. So he's trustworthy. So he takes care of his family. So he actually keeps to his word. So he actually is the one who what? Honors the things that need to be honored. He doesn't break his contract. He is the one who does X, Y, and Z. These are all key components. And you will overlook that because you was basing your compatibility on outward aspects, saying so-and-so went here, and then you got the worst of the drug, as opposed to so-and-so, because you wasn't even acting off the prophetic advice in the first place. Henceforth, your guardian wasn't looking for that. Compatibility is not based on places, persons, and things. I want you to stop and understand this. Your compatibility in creed got nothing to do with a place, person, or thing. Do you understand that? Your compatibility in creed has something to do with the understanding and the practice of that creed. You understand that? That's very important. And in our city, we don't know how to make that distinguish. That differentiation, we don't know how to make, and it's a big problem. And you find sister so-and-so been married to 4 different men, and they all went to the same masjid, and they all were staying in the same classes. And so sister so-and-so, she feel mad and she feel bitter because she went through these 4 men who had horrible characters, but quote-unquote, they were Salafi. All because she didn't understand, nor did her guardian understand, that it wasn't about where that person associated himself to or affiliated himself to. It was more so about his practice of that deen, which the Prophet ﷺ actually said. One who deen and character pleases you. That's what it say. That's the hadith. You can't override that. Not with a statement of Fulan or Alan, you can't override that. That's the Prophet ﷺ statement. You will marry off the woman who deen and his character pleases you. Okay, his deen and his character, his understanding of that deen is practical. Now you're sitting there saying, okay, let's remove people, places, and persons and things when we talk about compatibility and creed and compatibility in our manhaj. Let's remove it. Once you remove it, brothers and sisters, trust me, you're going to make out better. Because now you're going to start paying attention to who actually really understand creed and who actually understand manhaj. And that's a whole nother topic in and of itself when we talk about manhaj, the different meanings of minhaj with a kasra versus manhaj with a fatha, and the understanding of the ulama from the past up to now, how they understand manhaj and how it's actually incorporated. We throw these terms around so loosely and we don't know nothing about them. We really don't. And we're babies when it comes to understanding these terms, and then we think that that's all good and dandy because we say we take from Shaykh Islam and Taymiyyah, or we take from Ibn Qayyim, or we take from Masjid so-and-so, or we take from person so-and-so, or we just as ignorant as the day we walk in the door. And so we really don't know, and then we're judgmental of others, and we're making judgments based off this or that because this is what people are programming us to believe and to think, and it's incorrect. Learn for yourself. Really learn your deen. Understand your deen. And when you do, you won't be making such mistakes like this. You wouldn't be judgmental of others based off of what you perceive a person to be upon and not what a person is actually upon from what you see of the character. If you cannot detect the person is upon sunnah because you don't even understand what sunnah is, then that's a telltale sign to you, you need to study. If you can't detect a person's upon Quran because you don't know what Quran is and you don't understand Quran, then that's a telltale sign to you, you need to study. If you cannot tell a person is a person following the companions because you don't know who the companions really are and you don't understand them, it just became a slogan, it's something to say because you want to, be affiliated with so-and-so, you don't really know who the Salaf is or what the Salafi is about, then you're going to sit here and say, this person isn't and this person is, and you're going to be judgmental and you're going to be incorrect. You're going to be wrong. And it's sadly mistaken, that's what we are plagued with. I've been an imam for 8 years. And I watch this and I still see people programmed with this type of mentality that have nothing to do with nothing because nobody's really studying. They trusting the next man to tell you what your deen is supposed to be. And you're not taking your time out to really learn. And you will see that that's not the case. And then you wouldn't be married to Alan and Fulan and then you find out that you got the bad end of the brunch and this person treating you horrible. But he's Salafi. I mean, he's in all the Somali classes. But he's treating you crazy, right? That wouldn't be the case because you would have went back to the prophetic advice and you would have understood that understanding is key. The way a person practices deen is based on his understanding. After you make the connection, the way a person practices their deen is based on their understanding. If his understanding is correct, his practice of that deen is correct. If his understanding is incorrect, his practice of the deen is incorrect. You must understand the two. It's a direct correlation. There's no separation between the two, and I hope that you got this. Yes, compatibility in creed is important. It's paramount. You should be compatible with someone. We already quote those verses to show you that you should be compatible in creed. And belief system, you should. But both of y'all should know what that creed is. And you should be compatible in Minhaaj. And then you need to understand what Minhaaj is. Is Minhaaj and Aqeedah separated, or is they incorporated? There are many scholars who actually incorporated them together, and there are some scholars who actually separate them. And as you should see, inshallah ta'ala said, it's a class in and of itself. But basically, you should know that a person is only going to give you what their understanding of something is. And if you don't see that in their character, don't think that that person, because he don't take from the same person you take from, it's not compatible in creed. Okay? Another big misconception is that we have, and it breeds this mentality. If the masjid is not a masjid that you didn't hear about or you didn't quote about, the first thing we think is that by default, that masjid is upon anything other than Quran and Sunnah. We automatically think that. And we can't lie and say that we don't. This is what we're programmed to think. If the masjid is not so-and-so masjid, and it's not this masjid I go to, then that masjid is definitely a red flag. Who told you this? Where did you get this from? You haven't had any indications to show you that. But other than the fact that so-and-so told you that because there's not the same masjid that we accompany, that masjid had to be off of it. Where do you get this understanding from? Masjids have rights. Masjids have etiquettes and pillars. Masjids have certain things to make them masjids. Do you understand? So for you to say that the masjid is this or that, how would you do? What if you did live down the street from a masjid that is upon innovation? Can you pray there? Can you not pray there? What is the case? This is all detailed rulings. This is all ulama answer these questions. Dealt with these issues in detail. But no one will come tell you these things and break these things down for you. So at the same time, you're sitting there saying, okay, I know that masjid is in Salafi because they don't bang with this masjid. And because this masjid is this, I know everyone that goes to that masjid is funny money and we don't mess with them. And you're incorrect and you're judging people wrong. You're judging people wrong. First of all, you don't even understand the concept of the four madhabs that are widespread. You might have someone that prays a certain different way from you and he's just following a madhab. Does it make it incorrect because he followed the madhab? No one from the ulama that are trustworthy and that are known for their salafiyah and known to their adherence to the deen and practice of it, none of them censor a person following the madhab. Matter of fact, your top scholars that you take from follow a madhab, to be honest with you, none of them actually make that statement. You have a lot of people who follow Ibn Taymiyyah himself, Hanbali. Ibn Rajab, Hanbali. You have many people from the scholars who are actually following madhabs. Some of them say that it's actually, when it comes to fiqh, it is obligatory to follow a madhab. Do you understand? So it's many people that follow madhabs. That don't mean because you follow a madhab, you're wrong. It don't mean that. A person can be from the Ahnaf. He can be Hanafi. That don't make him wrong. What makes it wrong is now when we look into the evidence that a person is using to ascertain the acts of ibadah and so forth, if it's weak or if it's not correct and it's not alignment with that which is correct, then we don't know how to tell the difference between that. We go to someone that's trustworthy, a scholar that is trustworthy enough that can go to and delve between that, then we deal with that by the permission of Allah. This is what I wanted to bring in terms of the compatibility. I didn't want to go into deep about compatibility and creed. I just wanted to make sure that this misconception be removed. We have to break the cycle. 25 years we have been taught a certain way and programmed a certain way, and we are actually just thinking that everybody is off it. This mentality is not how Islam came. Everybody can't be off it. If everybody off it, then what's the point of it? Everybody can't be upon bid'ah. What's the point of it? Everybody can't be upon innovation. What's the point? We have to stop this stuff. And don't think just because you have an understanding today, you're going to be upon the same understanding tomorrow. And don't think that Allah Jalla wa Ala is just going to keep you safe because you're quoting these names. You have to pray every day for safety. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Oh Allah, the turn of the hearts, keep my heart firm upon the deen. What did Allah Jalla wa Ala also says? He said, Rabbana la tuzik qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmah. Why is we making these du'as? Oh Allah, do not cause my heart to deviate after you have guided us. What did Allah Azza wa Jalla said about Ibrahim? What did he say? He said, وَجَنُوبَنِي وَبُنَيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. He said, keep me and my prodigy and my offspring from making shirk. Why is these du'as made? Why is these supplications made? None of these prophets, none of these MBS, none of these great people actually thought that they were safe. That's the point. None of them felt that they reached the level and that they were safe. Stop thinking you safe because you go to masjid so-and-so. Or you take from brother so-and-so. Or you take from scholar so-and-so. That don't guarantee your safety. What guarantees your safety is your fear and your hope and your love for Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's the pillars. That's what you stick to. And you hope that Allah Jalla wa Ala will accept your effort. And you hope for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward. And you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishment. And you love and you admire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the pillars that you use with. You don't walk around thinking that you're from Firaqatul Najiyah, that you're from the safe set. Even if you're holding on to the tenets of the safe set. You don't think that. You always believe that there's more improvement. and you don't know if Allah accepts your actions. And when you have a mentality like this, you will not get caught up into this bubble. And that's what this program of 25 years spent saturated have done to us. It made us question others. It made us question people that we know that to be upon khair and to actually follow upon khair, we start questioning them. We look at them funny. And we think that this is Islam and this is what Salafiyah is. It's wrong. That's not Salafiyah. And I challenge anybody. I would challenge anybody right now. Prove to me that that's Salafiyah. I read the books of the ulama. We can read them from the past into the present, up to now. And you show me that they had that mentality of that's what Salafiyah was. I guarantee you'll find once you start reading those books and once you start listening to the actual scholars and not people who just telling you stuff, you're going to find their speech is not like this. And I'm not talking about isolated scholars who have honed in on some certain parts. No, I'm not talking about that. As Imam Dhahabi mentioned, when it comes to our hadith or when it comes to the people of Jarh, he mentioned that they're what? They're broken down into 3 categories. You have those who are mutasahil, who are very lean and lax. You have those who are in the middle. And then you have those who are mutashaddid and those who are very stern. These are all from scholars of the past who was actually a student of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. They explained that these categories for us to better understand how we understand the text. I want you to understand it. And the last point I want to bring is that when it comes to the text and it comes to fiqh, you must understand you fall only under 1 of 3. And these 3 categories, as Sheikh Salih Fawzan so eloquently put it, he said that these 3 categories you cannot escape. You're either going to be a muqallid, someone who's a blind follower, to some point and to some degree, because you don't have no tools, you don't know how to go in and to extract any rulings yourself, you don't know how to follow the evidence or even the arguments of the ulama themselves and what positions that they're using and why they came up and why they're taking those positions. So they make you a muqallid, all right? The second stage is what we call a muttabi'. A muttabi' is someone who follows the evidence. They have the ability to go into the works and follow the arguments or the debates in the different positions and see the evidence that each side is presenting, and they have that. Then you have the highest level of that, which is called the mujtahid. And the mujtahid is someone who can make ijtihad. He can make an independent, independent base off of knowledge and weighing the text. He can divide and extract those rulings based off those texts. Even if it wasn't a text there, you understand, that was solid and that was clear cut, he can weigh in and by placing other evidence together and support and be that. You know, and all of us right now can say that we're not of the first. I mean the last. We know we're not mujtahidun. So we can forget that, including myself. And many of us might be deceived and think that we are muttabi', that we're actually followers, you know, that we can go follow the statements of that. And when we really break it down, we can't. And, you know, inshallah, if we are, then may Allah reward us, okay? But if we know for sure, we'll probably fall on the first level, a muqallid. That means we have to trust somebody who have to reach these other levels to actually guide us and take us in our deen until we become, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indulge us with knowledge, that we become strong enough to determine that. And you are not going to be able to determine that when you talk about marriage unless you stick to what is right. So you sisters, specifically, you sisters, you do not base your marriage off someone who go to a certain masjid or a certain place or take from a certain scholar or a certain Muslim. That is not a telltale sign. It isn't. And you might say, well, brother, what if he take from so-and-so who known to be a Sufi? We're not talking about that. If someone takes from someone who outwardly is upon innovation, that is unanimously agreed upon from the ummah, all right, that this is innovation, ayniyah, clear, then we understand that. There's no need for us to elaborate on it. You know, if he's Tabliqi, you know what I'm saying, if he's Sufi, if he's Shi, and all of these different things, there's no need for us to go and delve deep into that. We know that. Everyone agrees to that. But what if this person is neither of the two? He's none of them. He's not Ikhwani, he's not this, he's not that. He's just a person who may or may not understand certain things, may or may not came across certain things, but he tried to generally stick to the Quran and the Sunnah. Do you base now because he doesn't go to masjid so-and-so that now he's funny money? That we're not compatible? No. That's not what that basically means. You know, you got to be careful with that. And that's what we wanted to bring. Inshallah ta'ala. Subhanakallah wa bihamdi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.